When I was a player, late bloomers will come in at 19 or 20 that maybe were overlooked when they were 16 or 17. And so you get those guys that are a little bit maybe more hungry just because they've been passed over.
That hunger is why the North American Hockey League is a destination for uncommitted athletes to secure their NCAA dreams. Steve Howard once played in the League of Opportunity, but now leads the charge for the Austin Bruins. He shares a little bit more on what is ahead for the upcoming season and recaps last year, today on NA Now.
Yeah, it was a great season for us, but ultimately our division had 3 of the top 5 teams in the entire league, and Bismarck obviously won the Robertson Cup, and they were loaded last year. They had a lot of older guys, which, I think that really played a part in the playoffs. We only had 5 20-year-olds, and I want to say they were 15, 16, 20-year-olds, something like that. So, I think that's huge for teams that are going deep and trying to win a Robertson Cup. I think having that experience really helped them. And I think it's going to help us this year because we return a lot.
Last season, your roster featured a 42-12, 3-2 record during the regular season. What are some of your biggest takeaways from last year?
There was a lot of great things from last year. We set some records. We had some great players that came through here that will probably hold those records for a long time. It was just a good group of guys. I think since I've been here, we've established a good culture and, on and off the ice. And I think last year that group was certainly one of the special ones that I'll always remember. And, hopefully with returning quite a few of those guys that, this year we can pick up where we left off.
What about that group makes them so special?
I think just, when you think about some of the things we did, I think it was, a 21-game stretch there where we didn't get beat in regulation. That was kind of a cool little stretch that we went on. And inside the locker room, those guys were so close, and they all knew that, we all had to buy in. And our young group, our older guys, like everybody was just they were class acts all year. And then to have what Lorenza did last year, even Malkasian, what he did last year, our goaltenders like Jack Solomon, we lost both of our goalies that we had at the beginning of the year, and then we get Jack back, and then to have Carl Axelson to get sent to us, those guys were a one punch. I wouldn't even say it's a 1-2 punch. Those were a 1-1 punch, as far as goaltenders go. And it was just, once again, we had some really good defensemen, good forwards. It was a good team all around, and I was fortunate to be able to coach that group, and I'll always remember them.
Mm-hmm. Steve, you also have a special connection to the North American Hockey League because you played in the league. What are some of the biggest changes that you have noticed from your time from playing to now coaching?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest thing is the landscape. Obviously the footprint too. When I was playing, it was mainly in Michigan. I'm from Michigan. I think a lot of us kids from Michigan back then, it was the North American Hockey League, the USHL, and the AWHL, the American West League. They're all on the same level, and we would all play against each other for the national championship, or meet in a central location, or one of the leagues would host a cup. But it was a long time ago. A lot of things have changed since then. But I think they had switched up the Tier 1 to Tier 2 status in the early 2000s. And then this past November, obviously, with that landscape change, it's probably the biggest one junior hockey's ever seen. So I think everybody's still trying to feel it out and figure out where the chips are going to fall and how things are going to settle here. But for me, I'm just excited because once again, as you said, I played in the league, and to be a part of it for this will be my 9th season. It just kind of makes me feel like I'm back where I started, and hopefully I can pass on as much knowledge to these kids and these, I should say, young men, to get them advanced onto their goals and dreams of playing Division I hockey or college hockey. Period. To be honest with you, and hopefully pro.
Yeah. So alongside your experience playing in the North American Hockey League, you also played NCAA hockey and also pro hockey. How has those experiences translated into your coaching now as the head coach of the Bruins?
Yeah, obviously times were a little different back then, and I keep getting older, but to that stretch in the early 2000s to I played for 7 years in the minors. I think the hockey was played a lot different. I think the rules have changed. The game has changed a bit. It's much more skilled and fast. And that's probably the biggest difference is the guys that were probably playing in my day. You could find um, a bunch of role players and guys that were going to play hard and heavy. Now you can find a bunch of guys that can all do the Michigan, and it's the skill is everywhere out there. It's trying to kind of bend and mold and make sure you got a group that's going to play a little bit of the. They're going to finish their checks and play a little bit of those I guess role play a bit in a sense to where a third, fourth line guy would kind of be a checking group or a checking guy. We need to have a few more players like that, and they're hard to find nowadays. Everybody wants to score all the goals, and that's probably the biggest difference in the change as far as from when I played or when I was coaching early on, even to today's day and age. But having said that, the group that we had last year, we had a good mix, and we're hopefully going to continue on this year with the same type of mix.
But to kind of big piggyback off what you were saying, you're heading into your ninth season with the Austin Bruins. What keeps you coming back as coach?
Honestly, a lot of things. This city, I love this town. My wife and I have been here since the beginning. Obviously, we moved up here together, and we just love it. The support we get in Austin. It's a great little community in Minnesota, and 26,000 people. And really, during the winter, the Austin Bruins are the only thing to do in town. So everybody comes out. They know us. We get treated really well here. Our ownership is probably the other big thing. I came here with Mike Cooper and Craig Patrick. They were great, and they owned the team for my first, I think it was 6 years, and then the last 2 years, our new owner Brian Radines took over, and it's been great. Like, I think that's a really big thing in my profession is having owners that you trust and that trust in you and that you get along with, and the ownership has been awesome. And then just keep coming back because you kind of find your niche. I've said it before, but once you get kind of used to the scouting and how the league works and all that good stuff, and more importantly, moving guys on to colleges, I think that's the biggest part about our profession is the kids all want to move on, and if you have the contacts to move them on, and you build a culture the way you want it, sometimes it's a scenario that why fix what's not broken, right? So just love the town, love the area, and keep coming back.
With last season's roster, there were 11 athletes with NCAA commitments. How does it feel as a coach to see your athletes have those opportunities at the next level?
Yeah, it's really what we do this for. It really is. I mean, there's nothing like having a player come in to tell you that he's just committed somewhere or give you that call. It's probably the most rewarding thing about our job. And every year we want to keep moving those guys on. And I certainly think we'd have more, but we had a lot of younger guys last year. So having said that, a lot of the younger guys, hopefully we get them their college commitment this year, and we certainly we're excited for the 11 that did move on, and I think there might be a couple more coming out here in the next few weeks. But all that said, that's our number one goal. We want to move guys up and move guys on.
With that, the Bruins have become a staple in the North American Hockey League. They just recently wrapped up their 15th season. What about Austin stands out as an organization and also as a city to play hockey in?
Yeah, it's the town support, really. We're close enough to say the Twin Cities. We're an hour and a half south of the Twin Cities, that the guys are close enough to, a lot of maybe they're from the Twin Cities, maybe their parents want to fly in, they can fly right into Minneapolis and drive down, but we're far enough away that, we're surrounded by cornfields in this small little town, right? And so you have the junior feel of playing. Honestly, it's kind of like playing minor professional hockey. You're a big fish in a small pond, really, and the entire town, from the businesses to the restaurants to the fans, the billets, like everything. You asked earlier why I keep coming back. Like it's all kind of set up for us. We love it here, and it's the relationships that we built here, and I think a lot of the players really, really do enjoy coming and playing hockey here. We have some that come back for their third and even their fourth year to play because they love it so much, and that's a rewarding thing for me. I think I always joke around with the rest of the staff and say, they obviously want to come back because of the coaches, but really it's everything. It's the town, and obviously they love their billets, and then we still see quite a few of them. They'll stop through and come in and say hi because maybe they're going to play college hockey out east, or maybe they're passing through because they're going to play minor pro hockey out west. And so they'll stop through for a couple days, and it's nice to see those guys and just catch up with them and see how they're doing. So
that's really fun to hear, to see that it's very full circle. They're making the return. But while we're still talking about the players, what makes the athletes who come through the North American Hockey League different than any other junior league?
Well, that questions can go in a lot of different ways. When I say that, like, a lot of times we start out with a lot of the younger guys and we develop them in their first year or two, and then they move on to, let's say, USHL or maybe in the CHL, and they go from there. But in a lot of other ways, and even my path, when I was a player, late bloomers will come in at 19 or 20 that maybe were overlooked when they were 16 or 17. And so you get those guys that are a little bit maybe more hungry, just because they've been passed over, they've been cut from every USHL camp, or maybe they were drafted and they just never played for that USHL team. Well, we have a lot of those older guys that really develop later, and for us to get a player at 19 or 20 and turn them into a player that hopefully can have a long career and professionally even after college, and that's probably one of the bigger rewarding things about the league. I think is everybody talks about the NAHL being an older league, and it certainly is. Like we just talked about, Bismarck had quite a few 20-year-olds last year. We're gonna have quite a few this year, and having an older team is never a bad thing. I think when you have some of that experience and some of those guys that are maybe weathered, maybe they've been told no a few times. I really like that. I think that fuels their fire, and it's what keeps those guys going. They want to make sure they go out with a bang as a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old. They want to still hungry for that college commitment, and that's what makes the league so great. You guys are. The league is playing with a bunch of young men, and it's not boys, and I think, having said that, it's the closest thing to a semi-pro game. Fans can come out and they can watch a good brand of hockey with a lot of guys that, honestly, most of them are going to go play somewhere after college. And for you to come out and see the stars of tomorrow today, that's kind of one of the cool things about being in the league, and even to play against some of the players that we've in our division. Like it's so awesome to notice some of the guys that are playing on one of the other teams and go, man, that kid he's something, but even better when he's on your team, right? So those are probably some of the things that as a former player, as a coach now, that I'm probably most passionate about with the North American Hockey League, is just the simple fact that it's always produced players. I'm just excited and feel very fortunate to be a part of it still. And there's nothing like watching a player go to a development camp, or even play on the TV screen at some point. And, we had Nico Sturm win 2 Stanley Cups in the last 6 years, so it's pretty cool to see that former Austin Bruin, now Stanley Cup winner. But having said all that, it's a process, and it's what we do it for. Every year, you got to go out and find the next, hopefully, next Nico Sturm or the next Alex Lorenza or Luke Malkazian. So that's what we love doing. It's the hunt.
With that, the season is quickly approaching, and everyone at home doesn't get to experience an Austin Bruins game. Take us through what the atmosphere and the fan base is like.
Yeah, it's great. Our arena holds 2,000 people. We can squeeze about 2,500 in here, and we do on pink night. But it's the arena is very old. I think it was built in 1972. So you think about the history and the tradition of this arena. Having been around so long, it's certainly we've been trying to put some updates into it. And trying to get the city to keep upgrading for us, and obviously playing in some of the arenas in our division. They're very, very nice and state of the art, but there's something about old Riverside Arena. We got stands on both sides. Honestly, if you were to get 800 to 1,000 fans in here, it looks packed. But it doesn't really look much different when we have 1,500 to 2,000 in here. You know what I mean? It's just both sides pretty loud, and the fan base here is great. Obviously, being in Minnesota, it's a state of hockey, so everybody gets the game. They know the game, and it's an atmosphere like I consider one of the better atmospheres that you can play in junior hockey, just because of that old feel. We really like the way things are presented here. I think our front office does a great job. I think David Coyer does a good job on the call. He's a up and coming analyst that'll be moving up, or play-by-play analyst that'll be moving on, just like TJ Shalott or any of the other guys that we've had move up to pro. But they do a good job here. Quite honestly, our entire division does a really good job. I don't know that there's a bad spot that doesn't really have any atmosphere in the Central Division, but we all steal from each other. You see the same games being played in intermission and whatever, but most importantly, it's when you come into Austin, that you have some passionate fans. We travel well. A lot of them go on the road. It's not uncommon for us to be in a place like Bismarck or even Minot and see some black and gold up in the stands. So. I just hope that everybody does get a chance that's watching this to catch a game. If they don't, NAHL TV does a good job. And once again, David Corey will be on the call.
What do you think players enjoy the most about being an Austin Bruin, playing and living in Austin?
I think it goes back to they're treated like a pro here. We try to treat them professionally as coaches, as a hockey staff, as an organization. And then on and off the ice, it translates. Once again, small community. Wherever they go to a restaurant, they have to be mindful that even though they don't have maybe an Austin Bruin shirt on, people know who they are. And so, that said, they're looked up to here, and I think the players that we bring in, we want to bring quality players, both as human beings and as hockey players. But more importantly, they got to be respectful around town, and I think they love the fact that they're treated like pros everywhere. They're signing autographs. They're constantly asked to do promotions and help out community service wise. We do a lot with the community here, and all that said, I think that's why a lot of players really come back for multiple years. Is they like the group that we put together, and when I say that, the culture we put together, and that keeps guys coming back.
Well, talking about the players as we head into this upcoming season, what are some of your overarching goals for this upcoming year?
Everybody's goal, obviously, the end game is to get to the Robertson Cup and win a Robertson Cup, right? So, there's 34 other teams that are saying the same thing right now. But having said that, we want to move as many guys on as possible too. That's the biggest thing. We got some guys with this new landscape that we feel like can be Division I hockey players, and can be, our entire hockey ops staff is going to be making a lot of phone calls, and those guys need to have productive years, and we need to make sure we're doing the right things as a group to counter some of the some of the different, I guess, styles of play in our division. We have some smart coaches in our division, and I feel like it's more and more of a chess match every game and every weekend. So, having said that, I think this year our main goal is obviously those two things, to try to win as many games as possible and get into the playoffs, and then get to the Robertson Cup and hopefully win one. But most importantly, move kids on.
Yeah, and talking about moving kids on, one of our big events of the year is the Greatest Show on Ice, the NA Showcase, where there's college scouts every year, and it's quickly approaching. What are you looking forward to most once you hit Blaine with the Austin Bruins?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting our group in front of those guys early on. I think it's such a great thing. That showcase right there starts the wheel, right? And as the wheel turns, those guys keep following your guys. They keep checking up on them. We keep making phone calls, and early on, if they're impressed, usually with that player, it's a lot of times it continues on to hopefully a visit and maybe even a college scholarship. So that said, it's so well timed. I love the fact that we do it every year. I love the fact that when we get up there, I get to meet some of the new coaches. As you know, in college hockey, there's even more so. There's a lot more turnover than there is in our level, I guess. So having said that, you get up there and you see a lot of assistants that have gone here or gone there, and you get to catch up with them, and hopefully we have the right fit, especially if it's a kid that maybe it's a higher educational school or an Ivy League school, and hopefully we have a couple of guys that fit that mold, and it's a lot of fun to mingle with those guys at the showcase there.
Absolutely. And to kind of wrap things up, reflecting on last season, what was one of your favorite memories with the Bruins?
Favorite memories? Oh, geez. It was probably that stretch that we went on, those 21 games. It was a lot of fun. Those guys were very focused throughout that, and we had our own little inside deals that we did throughout that, and that we tried to keep going all year or for those 21 games. And I think that was probably my favorite time. And there was so many little things that were going on. Just as you know, hockey players are pretty superstitious, and there was my assistant Robbie didn't have socks on the entire time because he forgot them for the game one, so he just quit wearing them. There was a lot of cold rinks that he was freezing, but that was just one of the little things. There was probably about 15 to 20 little things that we did during that stretch that it just kind of makes me look back and smile, and that was probably my favorite time.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. We'll see you in a few short weeks for the NA Showcase. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.